or under the sun. We look after each other, drive broken cars, and break the Big Ten.
Hi there, Neil from Serious Ale, Kibbutz Ketura, or Birzinut Brewing. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to talk about one of our beers, and specifically the Stout style. Now, those of you who have been following our beers might remember that we have a couple of dark offerings. Of course, we have Lila, but that's a black IPA. We'll talk about that another time. But in the past, we've had a couple of Stout style beers. We had one called Rosh Chodesh, which was using a Tennessee whiskey-based yeast for some special seasoning. And we had our famous Ziblit, or dung beetle, which was popular back in the day, maybe less so for the name, but a very nice beer of its own. And for a long time, Serious Brewing did not have a stout or porter style, a dark beer, except for Lila. So why is that? Well, first of all, there's some really great dark beers in Israel. I would definitely recommend trying a few. Dubim has a few. Pretty much every brewery in Israel has a good porter. Midnight Stout from Dancing Camel, of course. Alexander Black. And my personal favorite from the pick is probably Shapira's Oatmeal Stout. But there's definitely a lot of good things out there on the market. Oh, and of course it's worthwhile mentioning Herzl's Cubana, which Embargo, which has the Cuban tobacco in it. Definitely also should be on the bucket list. But where do we get off doing a new stout now? So one of the things that I've been trying to work on for a while is some sort of dark beer, but I didn't want to go the direction of milk stout or some sort of peanut butter, something that's a little bit more traditional, so it's going to really fill up the palate and be a meal in of itself, and yet could also be paired as well with foods. And something that was pretty traditional in that sense, but something that will definitely linger on the palate. And I think we found it in the beer that we have today. And for me, stouts, also we can talk about the difference between what's a stout and what's a porter. And between you and me, I mean, I don't necessarily brew to style all the time. I don't think there's a big difference. It's more sort of in the name than porter to stout. And I know a lot of people are going to comment on that, and please feel free to comment on that. But basically, when you get down to it, sort of in the modern age, the biggest difference between porter and stout is the use of unmalted roasted barley, which, of course, in my opinion, that's sort of the trademark of a stout, where you taste that roastiness. Sometimes also sort of gives off those coffee notes, even without an additional adjunct addition of coffee. So in our malt bills, we like to punch it up. We had the granary stout. Richard Bull here put together a beautiful stout called the Granary Stout, and this is sort of modeled after that with, in my opinion, one important difference. And so what are we looking at here? So of course there's our base malt we're using here is pale ale. Whoop. I guess I should have not had those 3 beers before I did the video. And of course we use a lot of wheat. We like to give a lot of body, so there's oats, there's wheats, and there's a nice dosing of rye. I love malted rye, especially at the end, gives that sort of dry finish to the palate, almost makes you want to just smack your lips together and just have another sip. I think that's a really powerful way to make a good bodied beer, even without the other flavor components that it's bringing to the beer itself. And Carafa Special. Carafa Special, Weirman's malts, dark malts without the astringency, are giving a nice caramel kind of feeling to it. And that's what you're more or less going to get with this kind of beer, is you're going to get a nice maybe roastiness, coffeeness on the beginning. You're going to get caramel and just sort of really rich tones in the middle. And then at the end, you're going to get that rye sort of dryness that helps the rest of those tastes to linger on the tongue. And in my opinion, those sort of complexities make it the kind of beer it is. And we'll get into the bittering of it a bit later. So pouring the beer, I mean, needless to say, everyone's got their own preferences. I like to use, this is a pint glass, right? So I like to use an oversized glass. I like to have a nice big creamy kind of head on it. So I'm almost going to pour this almost like a wheat beer. So I'm going to pour against the other side of the glass, and then I'm going to maybe even swirl it around a little bit. And at the end, get that brewer's inch and top it off so that I can get as much foam as possible. And then, of course, we always like to see a little bit of that lacing on the glass. This is the rich color that I'm looking at. It's sort of almost dark brown, just on the verge of that black stout that we're expecting, kind of Guinness. On the nose, you're not going to get too much of the hops, but you are going to get a significant amount of. I'm getting a little bit of chocolate. I'm getting a little bit of coffee. And certainly that complexity that will come into it. By the way, this is a 5.5% beer. I wouldn't recommend aging it too much, but of course, a little bit of time will certainly make this bad boy a little bit better. So, yeah, definitely some really nice notes on it. And of course, needless to say, it's a style that not everyone likes. But if you like those darker roasty notes, I think this is definitely worth trying. Here, let's give it a sip. So it's full-bodied. It doesn't have the wateriness that I get when I'm drinking, let's say, a Guinness. And just got that lovely middle of the taste. Like even now, I'm just feeling that caramel sort of residing and the rye malts taking over. There's just enough adequate bitterness on the back that it's giving you that to oppose the sweetness that is sort of perceived from the wheat being in there and the way we mash the grains, of course. And so when I talk about hopping, I usually stay pretty traditional. In this case, we're using more German style, so it's Pearl and Hallertau, keeping things kind of low in the IBUs. Not really trying to bitter it up. This isn't an IPA, and though hoppy beers are great, and I really like our hoppy beers, but that's not necessarily what everyone's looking for. So, one second, I lost my notes. So, one of the things you might wonder about is the name of the beer. So. We named this beer Pnei HaTahom. So Pnei HaTahom, or the face of the void, is a callback to the book of Genesis, or Sefer Bereshit, where they're talking about when the earth was first made, and there was darkness on the face of the void. And the face of the void somehow, I don't know, sort of talked to me in terms of where we are right now and in terms of the coronavirus and what people are able to do or not able to do. We've been very thankful that there have been lots of our customers who have directly ordered beer and or supporting our other customers that are doing beer deliveries, or maybe those that are still open, which I'm very happy to hear. This is going to be one of 3 stout offerings. You'll have to wait to see what the other 2 are about. But meanwhile, this one's available on the website, which should be somewhere in the description, and through Beer and Beyond, and will be also at Chavat Naot starting tomorrow. So if you're interested in the stouts or what we've come up with, or what we're looking forward to be doing, what we're looking ahead to be doing in the next half a year, why don't you leave me a comment in the description, or you can just send me an email, and I'd appreciate that as well. And just on our website, we have all kinds of information about our other beers, tours that you can do if you're coming down to Eilat, and of course seminars that we run for people in the area. And if there's some interest, then maybe we could do it also online. But right now, just hoping that you guys are staying safe, that you can curl up with a good beer. And we'll see you next time.